Okay, so when I was preparing for this, one feedback that I got was that people love to hear stories, real-life stories from my experience. Now, I am very comfortable sharing with you the good stories that have good results, but I was a little hesitant, right, about the bad ones. And I thought about it, but you know what? It's Friday, it's the last day, and we're in Vegas, so what happens here stays here. So whatever, as long as we have that understanding, let's have some fun and learn something new today. All right, so I'm Michelle Wan. I used to be an engineer myself, and then I turned to the dark side. I became a manager, and I now lead the authorization engineering team at Workday. So I deal with security evaluations all day long. Now, show of hand, how many of you here knows what being strategic means? You do? Great. Great for you, because I didn't. And when I was doing research trying to find a good definition for being strategic, I really didn't find any good ones. Many of them were abstract. I didn't really find practical ones. And so as I was trying to define this, I went back to really thinking about who are those leaders that I really looked up to, that I really aspire to be. And one leader came to mind, Kevin. Kevin was an engineer. I met him when we were solving a performance scaling problem for authorization security evaluation checks. And what set Kevin apart from the others was that he asked questions. You see, we were struggling to find a solution to make our security evaluation faster for one of our operations. And things were timing out, and we were just finding every way, and we were thinking in minutes. That's what we were thinking the best that we could do. But one day, when Kevin walked into the room, he asked many questions. And then he said to all of us, I think the problem is X. We should do Y. And if we do it right, we can get it down to 10 seconds. Everybody listened. You see, we weren't thinking in seconds at all. So what I really appreciated Kevin, and I thought what was so special about him, was that he really understood the whole picture better than anybody else. And he was willing to make informed choices. And then he created alignment. He got everybody and every process behind on executing that chosen strategy that we had. But then he was not in love with his idea. He was willing to evaluate and adjust. So for the purpose of today, that's how I'm going to define being strategic. It's showing mastery in these 4 behaviors. But why are we even talking about being strategic, right? We're identity professionals. Why do we care? Well, as many of the speakers throughout this week has already pointed out to some stats, identity sprawl is happening, right? Many organizations stated that they have 21 plus disparate identities per user. And when you have so many disparate identities per user, it's not surprising that organizations are having challenges to manage these identities. And also, identity-related breaches happen. Many organizations experience one, at least one. And so I argue that being strategic is required to solve identity challenges effectively. And that's why we're talking about it today, right? My contention is this, that every identity professional should think and act strategically to help organizations effectively navigate the complex and evolving identity landscape. That's why we're here today. Now, how to think and act strategically then? Well, I took my observations of Kevin's strategic behaviors, and I boiled them down to these 4 steps. Learn, decide, align, and adapt. Now, you might be thinking, Michelle, are you just making this up, right? Well, it turns out that I'm not too far off. A Columbia Business School professor, Willie Peterson, actually had this idea of strategic learning. He proposed a learning-based process that helps organizations to create and implement breakthrough strategies. And he emphasizes that strategy is really a learning process, and we need to continuously adapt. So, in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about the objectives of each of these 4 steps. And as promised, I will share tips from my very own experiences. So first, learn. The objective here is really to develop superior insights. What that means is you want to understand the situations better than anybody else. You want to understand the external environments, the market, your competitions, as well as your own internal realities. Now, here are some tips. Outwards first. You see, before Kevin came in, I committed this crime that many software engineers did, which is to go straight to solutions mode. We were just looking at all the possibilities, right? I was asking, well, what was really causing these timeout, right? Like, what if we just increase the threshold? Don't get me wrong, my engineers did tell me, why that was a bad idea, but the problem was we went into just enumerating all the possibilities. We ask what we can do instead of focusing on what our customers actually needs. And so what happened is we focused on technologies. We thought about proposing some of the cool technologies that many speakers talked about it throughout the week. The problem was whenever we go to a stakeholder meeting and tell them what we want to do, we never get their buy-ins because we were not able to answer some of the basic questions like, what are the costs? What are the risks? Will it actually solve the customer's problem? We just didn't know. And sometimes it's actually not that we didn't know, but we ignore it because we were so in love with pursuing that cool ideas that we wanted that we couldn't stay objective. And so I urge all of us that in this stage, in the learning stage, our goal really is to understand the reality, seek the truth regardless of our own bias and current beliefs. Next is decide. Now this is hard. You have to decide what is the most important and only focus on those few key priorities. Time and limited resourcing is real. We cannot work as if we have unlimited time and unlimited resourcing. The fact is, if we couldn't deliver a solution in time, our customers may walk away. The problem was, you see, before Kevin came in, my engineering team and I definitely spent a lot of time just thinking about the possibilities. We were trying out different things. We acted as if we have all of the time in the world. But that's simply not true. We weren't choosing what not to do. We have so many ideas. We were doing all of them. So we lacked focus. And, hindsight is always 20/20, but we really could have stopped some of the, not so good ideas and really focus on those ones that we said that have the highest chance of actually achieving what we needed. And, as a result, sometimes, high-value items didn't get prioritized to the top, And we sometimes just didn't even pick it up until we realized it later. And what would really help to stay focused is that you can define that winning value proposition very clearly. You have to answer where you choose to compete and how you're going to win. And I'll give you this example, right? We probably could have customized certain things for some of our customers and speed up the evaluation that way. But that would go against our value proposition of configurability. And we were not willing to compromise on that because that's how we're going to be better than our competitors. Next is align. You have decided what you're going to focus on. You have to make sure that all the people and processes are also aligned to execute that chosen strategy. Now, I committed this crime myself here, that when I was trying to explain to people what we were about to do, I used a lot of technical jargons because I really just thought that would make me sound smarter, which is not true. And I thought that by using these technical jargons, I was being as accurate as possible. The problem with that is that I failed to recognize that I would alienate my audience, who just simply didn't understand what I was talking about. So what happened was that people didn't understand at all. They couldn't, and since they couldn't understand, they don't know what to do. And so they just went back to doing their own thing. So you have to clearly communicate what exactly what we're about to do, and you have to convince people. You have to explain why we're doing it in very simple terms, especially for stakeholders that are not in the same domain as you are, so that you can ensure unity of actions. And sometimes, as software engineers or IAM practitioners, we know the standards, we know the best practices, and we want to, obviously prioritize security first. But sometimes that makes us look like an obstacle, right? We have to remember that we are a partner. We're here to enable the business, and that's how people should see us. All right, next. Adapt. Once you have implemented that strategy, you have to look at the results and continue to learn and adjust to any new insights that you got. Now, how many of you play poker here? Cool. Awesome. Hopefully not during the sessions. But you see, many people describe strategy as like a chess game. I think that strategy is actually more like playing poker. Because the reality is you don't know all of the information, but you have to make a bet. You have to make a choice. And you always know information more in the future. And so sometimes it may feel difficult to admit that, hey, that original idea doesn't look as good anymore. But if you recognize that strategy is a bet, you will feel more comfortable about it. And the key really here is to evaluate the results and adjust as necessary. Now, I told you that Kevin walked into the room saying he thinks the problem is X, we should do Y. Well, it turns out the results that we got, we did actually get down to less than 10 seconds. But the root cause was not X, and the solution that we implemented was not Y. You see, it's not how we started, right? It's about really not being in love with the idea, but staying objective, taking in those new insights, and adjust as necessary. Also, the reality is identity and the cybersecurity fields are rapidly evolving. So make sure you keep learning, right? Going back to that first step of learn, and it's really a continuous cycle. All right, so show of hand, how many of you are my evil partners in crimes here who have a management title? Awesome. This next slide is for you. And trust me, I've had manager who told me exactly what to do, and I have manager who held me accountable for my decisions. And I will tell you, the managers who held me accountable for my own decisions got a lot more out of me. And so I urge you to foster a strategic mindset in your organization. And how you will do that is by role modeling. Clearly communicate what the organization business strategy is. This will enable your people to make decisions. Trust and hold people accountable for the decisions that they make. And do provide feedback on their decision-making process and the outcomes. You see, there's this idea of outcome-based accountability, and there's also process-based accountability. I argue that it's important to do both. Of course, you want to be objective to evaluate and look at the results so that you can learn from it. But also, the decision-making process is just as important, right? You see, I admitted a lot of crimes that I made when I was working with Kevin for the performance and scaling problem. But the team ultimately still resulted in achieving the goal that we had. So how much was luck? How much was me being strategic? Now, I would argue, Kevin was, definitely that strategic leader, but, I definitely got the credit for it as well. And so, I would say that the decision-making process is just as important. I recognize that I could do much better, and I wanted to learn from Kevin. And really help people to develop strategic thinking skills. It is a skill that can be learned, right? It's not something that it's just born with. And really emphasize that strategy is about continuous learning. We all have that offsite, they gather everybody every year, right? Have some fun, talk about strategy, and then, how many people actually look back at that strategy, right? It's about continuously learning. It's not a one-time event every year. And last but not least, recognize those leaders, especially those that without a management title. It takes courage to take a stand. It takes courage to learn and to say something that is different than colleagues. So recognize those leaders, especially those without a management title. So I'll end this and then go into Q&A, and I'll leave you with these call to actions. Recognize that you can lead regardless of your position. It's not about the title. Learn not just the technologies, but also the business. You want to know and understand the whole picture better than anybody else. Decide what are those key priorities and focus. Align your entire organization behind that chosen strategies. Make sure people understand what you're talking about and that they're working in unison. Adapt to changes based on any new insights, any new learnings that you have, and promote a strategic mindset in your organization. We need strategic identity leaders. to solve very challenging problems in our space. All right, with that, thank you so much for spending this time. And Q&A, I want to know your thoughts and questions. Yes?
Michelle, thank you so much. This is very informative. I just wanted to learn from some of these experiences that you've had in your teams. How do you promote that trust if you are a brand new leader from the outside who's actually placed in a position where there are people already working in that position and perhaps applied for your role and did not get it?
Yeah. So the question is about how to build trust, especially people who apply for maybe certain opportunities and didn't get it before, and you have to deliver that, and you deliver that tough news to them.
I did not deliver it. My boss did, and they installed me.
I see. Yeah. Trust needs time to develop, and what you can do, my advice for you is showing vulnerability, and it's okay to be wrong. It's about how you react to those new learnings, right? That's why I said it's the decision-making process is just as important as the result itself, right? And it takes time, and understand that it may, some of these opportunities may not happen today, and show a genuine interest in trying to help people to succeed, right? So going back to the idea, it's not an obstacle. We need to show that we're a partner. We're there to help the business and the individuals to succeed. Okay. Any other question? Yes, in the back. Yeah. That's a great question. So the question was, there are so many new technologies, but we deal with kind of the older technologies as well. How do we balance the time between the old world and the new world, right? My team and I deal with that every single day. It's a choice. You have to make that choice. And it really depends on the strategies that you ended up with, right? You could decide, if it makes sense for your business, to just focus on the new. You could decide on that, right? But more likely and practically speaking, is that you will need to continue to maintain. The question then becomes, how much do you invest in still maintaining the old, and how much you invest in, let's say, like the new innovation? That's up to you, and it depends on your situation. Love to chat offline. I deal with that every single day. I have to make that choice every single day for my team. Question, yes?
As a manager yourself, how do you actually go about promoting your direct reports, or like people that are like new grads, for example, that are highly technical, and they are always willing to share the technical information or like ideas as opposed to a strategic idea. So you mentioned that leaders should promote strategic thinking. What kind of techniques have you used to actually help them understand that some situations are better to be thought as strategic as opposed to technical?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you help new grads, new people who are enthusiastic about, promoting maybe some new ideas that people didn't think about, and how to help them to kind of understand, what is kind of being strategic, and, and what is maybe realistic, right? And kind of rephrase your question. Like I said, the decision-making process is just as important. That's my view on it. And so you have to understand how they came to that idea, really understanding their thinking process, and then show them, hey, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Really guiding them through and just asking more questions back at them, right? And sometimes it's just they never thought about that consideration, right? They never thought about cost. But once you throw it at them, and if they're smart, right, that they will, and hopefully, right, you will encourage them to really consider that point as well, and then take into account of that consideration, and just ask back, right? Now that you know that we have limited budget, would you still make the same proposal? One question at the back, yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, how do you promote your team to take risk for the decision growth, right? Whatever category it's or technology or it's how do you help the team to provide that?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you encourage taking risk and promoting innovations, right? Like I said, it's okay to be wrong. That's what you have to make your team members understand, right? We may not get it right the first time, right? Even if you make the right decisions, based on the information that you have, you may still not get the results that you want, right? Classic example, poker, right? It's all about probabilities. You can make the right and great decisions, but the outcome is not what you have hoped. So you gotta make people understand that and be comfortable with it. And then I think naturally, people are more willing to take risks because they know that they can be wrong. Right? So that will be my answer to that. All right, I think we're out of time. I will step out of the room and thank you so much.